Hi, everybody, and welcome to an episode of Let's Talk About It, because it's not a show us your deck or we're booked. I haven't done one of these in a while, and I will be talking today with Mellissae, Lucia, and Amber Dawn, which are here. And we're gonna be talking about their project, which we're gonna mention the name right now. But I was having issues. I broke my ring light. Please let me know that you guys can hear me. Oh, hi. Nice to see you, Jennifer. So nice to see you. Okay, let's see if I can get them in, because I know Amber has never done this before. And I'm inviting both of you, and let's see if you guys can. Oh, thank you so much. Nice seeing you. Oh, perfect. Hi. I can see both of you. Perfect.
I was trying to. I have devotees and friends who wanted to watch it, so I was going to try to record it and talk to you on my laptop.
But you know what? I can when we're done, I'll tag you, and then it will show. If you accept it, it will show in your page too, so they can watch it on your page, and then you can record it from there or whatever. And I think there's the option also you can download it now. Instagram didn't have that before.
Oh yeah.
So
yes,
you can download it. Yeah, of course. Okay, so hi everybody. I'm sorry for the way I broke my ring light. I don't know how, or I guess it was my cat. I don't know, if I move it, it will go off. So if I go in the dark for a little bit, it's okay. I'm not scared of the dark, but which has a little to do with what we're gonna be or a lot to do with what we're gonna be talking about. But first of all, I'm super excited to see both of you. Amber, I've never met before, so nice meeting you. And
Nice to
Mellissae,
meet you.
I likewise. And I love Mellissae. I've had her before on the show, and I'm doing this a little bit. This was a little bit impromptu, and I apologize for the late notice for everybody. I am in the process of moving, and I'll post most details about it. So it's kind of chaotic, but it's okay. I mean, chaos is where we thrive, right? So thank you for being patient with me, and to start before we get into the meat of the topic. By the way, Mellissae has a couple of decks out. One of them, which I have here, Santos and Signs, right? This is 3, actually, by the way. And the Oracle of Initiation, which was my first, and I always say this, it was my the first giveaway that I ever won. She was a pioneer on giveaways, because Instagram people were not doing giveaways back then. I think it was a giveaway over email, and I had even forgotten I had entered it. So that was my first. So I have one of the first editions of that one, which is actually kind of like a picture. Their actual picture. The texture is like it feels like you're touching an actual photograph. That's what I mean. It's not like a regular art stuff or whatever. So it's a very cool deck. So I want to ask. If any of you can go first. Who are you guys, Mellissae and Amber, and how do you meet? And what brought you to this topic of what we're going to be talking about, which is the Nördic Witches Kinship Kit, the Shapeshifting Völvas. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but if I am, yeah. I'm like, I hope I'm not saying the wrong thing, but if I am, excuse me. Which is a very interesting topic. The only thing, I'm going to let you introduce yourselves, and then we'll talk a little bit about that.
Amber, you want to go first?
Sure. So I'm Amber, and I'm an artist and also an entrepreneur. And I met Lucia. We just celebrated our eclipse anniversary. So we met on the eclipse 7 years ago, and had just amazing soul recognition, just like soul family. and have been really close ever since. And so, Lucia, I think I should hand it over to you to tell us about how the birthing of the vulvas and the conception of the vulva started, and then I can fill in.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. It's interesting with visionary projects and projects that weave into so many different parts of what you do. Like the genesis of when they started is always an interesting question. Like I can give a guess at when I think it started, but it probably started many lifetimes ago, really, if you believe in that stuff. But it really was a couple of years ago. Someday I'll tell the story. Odin came and visited me in New Mexico and basically let me know that my Nordic ancestry and the engagement with that lineage wanted to go to a whole different level. It was a very interesting and paradoxical. You don't call on Odin. Odin comes when Odin wants to come. Like you don't say, "Can I have a meeting with Odin?" You don't do that. That's not been my experience. And so that just opened the channels that had started really 20 years before that, when I had taken a Sami shamanism course with the Foundation for Shamanic Studies, and Yuksaka, one of the grandmother of the bow, one of the Akas, had come in that class, and this relationship started that has continued to this day. So it's been this journey, but it's the last couple of years that the deck started to come through, and then it's a very interesting story how Amber came to be a collaborator and a key participant in this. That's a very interesting story.
So before we go into that particular detail, I should ask, I mean, obviously, as I mentioned before, you're an artist in your own right. You're a photographer. Like your first project, I believe your first project was Oracle of Initiation, right? Which also has this companion book, which is it's a very deep and also very I don't know if that's the correct word, experiential deck, right? It's not like your normal drawings on the deck and whatever meanings. It's really like a way of going in, or like an immersion deck, right? And also I had the opportunity to meet you last year during Tide in Texas, and the International Divination, what was it? International event, I guess. International Divination event. I think that's what it stands for. If I'm saying it incorrectly, I'm so sorry. And I was part of one of your workshops in the morning, and it was very. I think your I shouldn't say your style, but more like your approach, right, to life or divination in particular is very hands-on, and also integrating different things and different modalities, right? Which you also had a program before, which is, can you remind me the name?
Sorry.
Yes.
Deep play.
Deep play, yes. Which you've had a lot of beautiful collaborators as well. You have invited me. I know I haven't done it. I'm sorry. Oh my God. I always find myself doing things when it's happening, but I know, like, Jennifer has been part of it, Jennifer Stitley, I believe, right? And a lot of other amazing collaborators. So here's the only thing I'm gonna say that I know about this topic, which is why I find it a lot very intriguing. Also, the first time I heard about this concept of the vulvas are from also from shamanic studies. My understanding is they're like the wise woman or the practitioner from, like, let's say a female shaman, right? Or shamanic practitioner, their relationship with again the Norse gods and goddesses, and web of weird and things like that. So that's as far as I know. So what is this project about, and how did it come into being right now?
And Amber, I'm going to add a piece of weaving in the Oracle of Initiation, and then I I always love to hear your perspective on this too, because of this beautiful collaboration that's happening. But you really nailed it when you were talking about how it's an experience. It's like the things that I make, they're portals, they're channels. You go into them, like the images in the 70,000 ritualistic photos that were taken down in graffiti tunnels and on the land. Those, it goes beyond, no disrespect to artwork, but it goes beyond that, and it's a way to channel and a way to travel and a way to experience things that go far beyond the logical mind and all of the blocks that the intellect can have. And so this project that we're working on, to me, this is the next level. The Oracle of Initiation was like the original container, and then this is the North Star Nordic version of this embodiment and this becoming and being of these energies, and then going into the world being with these energies. So Amber, if you explain the Nordic Witches Kinship Kit, how do you explain it?
So to me, it has 4 elements, and really what it is, it's a way for us to tap into ancient wisdom. And so the vulvas are the archetypes of the different facets or faces of being a wise person. And very intentionally, Lucia and I have really created a we conversation in the pronouns that we use in the words that we're using. Traditionally, the vulva has been a feminine placeholder. And part of that is because the feminine is able to physically hold space in a way and be a container in a way. And I use the feminine in a gender neutral stance because I do believe that men can fully embody the feminine, but it's really about a place of holding that space and being able to anchor. And so the vulva's work is to travel beyond and travel into the other realms to receive wisdom and receive information. So the first aspect is the 24 archetypes of the vulvas. And corresponding to those 24 archetypes are animal embodiments. And so these are the familial patterns through which we can practice and be with our primal power. So we work with these animals, and each one corresponds to one of the vulvas. And through this process, as we were working with this material, I suddenly started seeing these numbers show up. And so the numbers started downloading, and each pattern actually corresponds to a number. And it's really, you can say 1 through 24, or really it's also 24 is also 0 at the same time. And then we have the runes. And so through that process, I had never studied runes, and my family immigrated from Sweden only a couple of generations ago on my father's side. And then on my mother's side, my mother's grandmother was Sami. And so she was part of reindeer herdsman tribes and immigrated to the United States in the early 1900s. And so I've always wondered why my family didn't have had a more open, broad understanding of spirituality and cosmology. And I can feel it in my DNA. And so even when I moved to Alaska in my early 20s, I just felt called to go there, and ended up eating reindeer meat for a whole season, and that was what my body knew it wanted. And so it was this instinctual knowing and familiarity with that type of landscape and above the Arctic Circle, and going and spending time in these places reminded me in my DNA what I knew. And so stumbling upon the runes and learning the runes, and then discovering that through unlocking what I would call the secret code within the runes, which is just a slight twisting and pivoting of the number sequence, that it actually lines up to a lot of numerology systems, and that there's a symmetry that occurs within this. And so I'm a person who speaks the language of numbers. That's what I do as my primary day job, is a lot of math. And so finding this numerological relationship in these energy patterns has been an exquisite experience, and almost like excitement and delight, and to know that there's something deeper and a deeper meaning with this. And the reason we use the runes is to remind us of these ancient symbols that actually unlock divine knowledge. And there's so much more there than just a symbol. And so working with the runes is really important. And then the numbers, which is, for me, the structures of the universe.
I love that you say that, and I wanna, and again, I don't know much, which is very interesting. That I usually know a little bit more about the projects and stuff, but this is completely a new concept to me. You said two things that caught my attention. One is like I work with numerology in general, and not with numbers on my daily. Well, I mean, I guess we all have to deal with numbers daily, but not that particular as much as you do. But I do work with numerology and divination, and I find the interconnectedness of every other divination system. It is as numbers kind of probably it gave birth to all of it as well, as you were saying, and the runes. I use them in magic, but I don't particularly use them as divination, but I use them as divination items, tools. But I do use them in magic all the time, and I'm inscribing them, etc. It's always felt I've had a strong connection with the runes as well, and I do think they are keys, kind of like people call the tarot, major arcana are keys. So similar sense, the runes also are kind of like a mnemonic symbol that will open or close certain doors, right? And then the third thing that I found very interesting is that you said the concept of how your family did not have a defined approach to, I guess, spirituality or religion, I would say, right? But how I feel like when people migrate from one place to another, etc., you're leaving part of that. It stays there, but you're kind of like getting disconnected from that land and that place, right? That when we talk about the spirit of the place and spirit of the land, etc., right? And I think that part of the project, and then Melissa, you can talk to this too, is how that comes into play in this project, that it's about reconnecting and probably finding your roots, right? And no matter where you are, right?
Yeah.
Amber, do you want to speak to that for a minute, and then I'll
Yeah, I do. And so part of it is, I grew up in a land-connected relationship as a child. And so I learned how to create deep relationship with place. And so my mother instilled that in me, and so did my father. But I grew up very, very connected to the land that we lived on for many years, for 30 some years. And so, and cultivated garden and food and massive food production and farmed and raised animals. And so I had a very unique upbringing where that felt right. The ecosystem didn't quite feel right, but the land felt right. And so this is a huge part for us to recognize our connection points and ancestral connection points to place, and how to cultivate and honor the ancestral connection points to place wherever you are. And it's not necessarily, I live in a place where I'm learning who the ancestral people were that stewarded this land, and have a tremendous amount of gratitude and respect and honoring. And I'm starting to get to know some of these people. And there's a lot of work to do around healing the rifts that have happened, and not just for the people whose land was taken away from them, but for the people who had to leave their lands because it was unsafe, like my great-grandparents did, which was to leave places because of conflict or because of violence or because of whatever was occurring at that time. And then the traumas that have happened through generations of fear and fleeing and scarcity and all of those pieces that come into play. And I see that this is more than just a divination kit. This is this is a magic toolkit. And working with the runes, it's been very interesting what has been unfolding as I've been working with these archetypes. And the beautiful gift with these archetypes and the animals is, in a way, it's a lot easier for my brain that speaks English to remember the names and to identify with these archetypes. So they're, in some ways, almost modern access to this ancient knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. I love that. I love to hear you speak about this. I feel like I want to dip this piece in, Chris, before I talk about this belonging to place piece, which is, I have been being a channel. I came in as a channel. That's my job. Because anything that's really transformative, we as humans, we didn't make that. You source that from the void. You source that from the unknown. You can be a good steward and you can bring it through. But like this project, Amber and I are not making up this project, right? We are the ones who happen to have the hearts and the eyes and the hands and the computer skills and the art skills and the skills to do this. But previously, before working with Amber, I've not had another human being who's been in the same channel with me. It's always been the land and the spirits, but another human being has not until now.
I love these. I love these.
That was awesome.
All the special effects, I never.
I don't know how they're doing it, but thank you. That's how I feel. That's how I feel collaborating with Amber. So this it's quite a long story, but it started this fall where I came to visit her on my way to New Mexico. We've had this wonderful connection and relationship, but Amber started to get information. I actually say that it's uploading because I think it comes from the land as much as downloading, but she started uploading and getting information. And when you make visionary projects, your job is to see if things are in resonance. Like, that's what a channel is. Is this resonant with the project or is it not? And then you move forward if it's resonant and you move away if it's not. So Amber started to get, unbidden, these poems, started to get information about the structure. And again, I've never had another human being who was at the level that I was at, who was available to come into because I know some really amazing channels and many of the people in my life are amazing, but who was available and had the destiny to be together in a project. And so this came out of left field for both of us, that she was going to be part of it. And it literally has become one of the most extraordinary and joyful, it's literally sacred play. And there's so much ease. It's literally like there's one mind when we get into the channel together. And so there's something, that's a piece of belonging. And I feel like a really central piece to this project is that most have lost their sense of belonging to the land, to their wise and well ancestors, to the unseen spirits, that there feels like there are all these veils and blocks and separations. And when that happens, people are in exile, whoever you are and whatever your cultural land ecosystem original instructions were. And so this project is about, we call it the kinship kit, because nobody really knows what animism is. I mean, you sort of do, but you hear that word and like, oh, I kind of know what that means. Animism is this belief that everything is alive, that there is an energy, a breath, a life force, a spirit in everything. Now, like a rock is going to have a different flow than we're going to have, but it's moving through the world. This is what shamans, mystics, all of witches, all of these folks, you move through the world having conversations and interfacing with these places and people that supposedly aren't alive and aren't animate. So animism, we use the word kinship, which is about how do we reclaim these essential relationships? How do we participate in these relationships? And when you, in the power of place where you are, when you start to have more of a dialogue and meaningful connection, that's support. that's belonging, that's connection, that's communion, it's deep joy that nothing else will give you. And so this kit at its basis for me is about how can we support others in opening up to having these deep, meaningful relationships with what's around them. How do you make offerings? How do you be in right relationship? That's a core piece of this.
I love that, and I think I always say also I like it. I like that word kinship. I use I it's one of those words that stay with since I learned it like years and years ago. Because I remember back when there was no internet, and I had to look up in Spanish, Spanish my first language, and Spanish English dictionary to see like a translating dictionary, and I think that's the perfect word. And also, I think what you mentioned about relationship, I feel like it's like we're all, as you said, like it's not that a piece of wood or whatever is gonna have the same consciousness as we do as humans or whatever, but we're sharing a space, right? And it is either the acknowledgement of you are here with me versus I'm here and I own you, or I'm here and I'm gonna exploit you, which is kind of like how we have become disconnected, because we have created this idea that we're superior to every other being in the world, and then that has really taken us out of like really, I mean, it's not nutty, it's like it made us crazy, basically. So I think that reeling it back in and growing those roots again, like helping you reconnect. I think that's amazing, and I think that work kinship, developing that relationship, just like similar as you meet a stranger and then you develop this relationship, which you'll have this deep connection as you guys did forever, through a common love, a common passion, a common respect, etc. Right? So there's so we touched about the reciprocity. We've touched about power of place as well. And as you said, animism, which again, a lot of people think animism, everything's alive, that's kind of crazy, whatever, because people think about it literally, and it's not really literal. It's a little bit more deep than that. How does the concept of, you guys can both talk about it, or whoever chooses, about the concept of shape-shifting, which we are aware as a society what that means. Obviously, popular pop culture, and like we talk about werewolves and things like that, right? And as a concept that everybody would acknowledge as what a shapeshifter is. But when it comes to spirituality, right? And also, let's talk about not just that, but also witches, the idea of witches shifting into other forms, right? It's very old, and it exists in every culture in the world. So how does that come into play here?
Amber, do you want to jump in on shape-shifting first, or you want me to go?
Sure, I can jump in. So it's something, actually, you see little kids do this all the time, right? And sometimes we call it imagination. But I watch my sons as little boys pretend to be a dog, and they become the dog. And they know what it's like to be the dog. And sometimes the dog's happy and sometimes the dog is sad, but they know what it's like to be the dog. And we experience it through dreams. As a child, I used to have these dreams of flying as an eagle over these, mountains and canyons. So we know what that experience is. And then we can intentionally open up those experiences through deep states of meditation, through, I would call it, the deepest form of empathy that exists, which is becoming one with that thing. And so from my experience of shapeshifting, I can take on and I can look like a completely different person, or even dress in costume and become that thing, right? If I put on a bear skin and a bear costume, I become the bear. And so the shapeshifting is both an energy form as well as, for me, it helps to be in costume, in form. And we see it all the time with actors and actresses and in theater. And so from my experience, it's the deepest level of empathy and imagination and creativity that exists is to go through that oneness experience. So, and that's part of when we say witch, also for me, a witch is simply a wise person who knows how to dance with the energy of the universe.
I love that.
That's gorgeous. Yeah, so shapeshifting, when the project started to come through, before the Shapeshifting Völvas was actually the initial name, and then I realized that that it needed something that explained the broader aspect of it. But the vulvas, when I think of shapeshifting, it's exactly what you said, Amber, that piece about this deep empathy and communion. It's like you there's an ability to merge with and connect with energies, locations. It's a form of magic, but I also think of it as being something that's about adaptability. So the people that are probably going to come to this project and the people that come to the work that I do, not everybody uses the word empath, but pretty much you're all empaths, or you're highly intuitive creatives, which is porousness. There's this ability to be porous and feel the things around you in a way that I don't think is the norm in the culture. I didn't know this for a long time. I thought, oh, everybody's walking around like the world is an acid trip. I literally feel the world like an acid trip, and I have for forever. But this piece about it is, though, how do we reclaim the power and the integrity and the adaptability, like the access and the adaptability that shapeshifting actually offers, which is to be very resilient. So, like, think about the person that you are with your family, the person that you are at work, the person that you are with your lover, the person that you are with your kids, the person you are at the grocery store. These are all different people, usually, to a certain degree. You know, that they're shades of who you are, that we all naturally do this. So with the vulvas and the shape-shifting, I want to call forth a reclamation of, I call us radiant sensitives. And sensitives pushes buttons because we all have trauma around, you know, feeling too much. But I want to reclaim the word sensitive and have us be radiant in this power. So for me, shape-shifting, what that really means, this isn't so much that like you become the werewolf or whatever. You know, if you want to become the werewolf or you have that skill set, fantastic. But overall, this is about authentic power and having access and adaptability to be able to use these sensitivities and this intuition and these instincts that we have in a way that helps us to navigate the world and be empowered and in our authority. That's where I come from with shapeshifting.
I love that, and I think one of the, you know, when we think about shapeshifting as a broader concept as well, that's how it's evolution, right? Like we shift into something else, and we're constantly shifting. And I think also when we think about, the principle of like energy, right? Like you can create it and destroy it. It just transforms. That is shape-shifting, right? So we're constantly in that moment of transformation. And when we try to stop it, that's when it becomes we become stagnant, right? And because we're resisting that change. And even if we resist it, it will still happen. It just might take longer. It might be more brutal to us in a way. But I think that that's a beautiful way of explaining shape-shifting, and I do believe, I think it's all those concepts, that it is. I think when from a shamanic perspective, from my experience also, is that when you shift into that, it's not necessarily you're becoming one with that entity, becoming one with that animal or spirit or whatever that will strengthen you in a way, and also reclaim that as because we are all connected, it will reclaim that part of you that has been wandering or lost, etc. That's kind of like going into many other places, but I think that's a beautiful way of
so. And I want to throw out there that that's why we, the animals, I think, have been such a key part of this, is because it gives us access to that part of ourselves that know how to physically be an animal.
Love that.
And then, oh, thank you, Lucia. Yeah, and so then,
animal wheel.
for example, we have
Wisdom wheel.
the archetype of the diviner, which is the rune that corresponds is Wunyo, and the message is joy, right? So it's Wunyo, and the animal is the narwhal, and it's the diviner, and so it's also the number 7, right? So these are the correspondences to this that have this amazing combination of magic. And when you feel that, right, there's no part of you that's like, oh, that doesn't resonate. It's like, oh yeah, Wunyo is joy. It's the diviner, it's the narwhal, and you can see it playing and almost jumping for joy. And the message is really about the strength is play, sparks magic. And then we also get to look at and have deep empathy for and be with the challenging sides, right? So when we look at the diviner, the lack of play or the lack of that strength is boredom, but boredom also sparks distraction, which is the extreme. So the extreme of play is, of its extreme form, is distraction. And so that's how this whole system works. And so we've built this database that gives people access to this ancient knowledge and tradition and these ancient wisdom through the animals, through the embodiments, and through archetypal words that we all resonate with.
I love
And
that.
yeah, and so then there's all the data responded, and then there's the art, and then there's the message. And Lucia is starting to put together the first group of workshops to work with this and to play with this, and for us to test this system, because it's a system, really.
And I think you mentioned something very interesting earlier. You used the example of your children as taking, and I think the emphasis on play, and obviously as you know, you've had to play also. I'm pointing at the camera as if you know who I'm pointing to. So.
Yeah.
It's just habit. I think the emphasis on play is nothing happens without an imagination, right? And nothing gets created without imagination, because we have to first think it into being, right? And that's how we tickle the idea and to be and things like that. So I think the emphasis on play is so important to actually probably make the most out of this and any other system as well of divination. I always tell people, especially my main go-to would be tarot, right? And I always tell people, like, start as a game. When you feel stuck, just remember it's a game. It's a game of life, not the actual game of life, but the game of life, right? To have fun with it, because you can't take anything like everything's serious, but that's why you also have to have good humor about it, right? It helps you navigate without going into, as you say, distraction, which would be kind of like the extreme of it, which is also taking you away from what it is that you should be doing, right? So you were going to say something, Melissa?
Oh, I was going to jump off of this piece also about, so if you heard when we've said the name of it, it's plural. It's not the Nordic witch, it's the Nordic witches. And it's interesting because there's been this long line in my professional world of things being plural. Mellissae, my pen name, that's plural. I had a business called Horse Dancers, plural. And so when this was emerging, it came to be that it wasn't one witch, it's the collective, and it's coming back again to this piece about the collective. And Amber had touched upon, with this project, anything that's really going to make a big impact these days, you do it together with other people. The time of the lone wolf is not what's really going to transform, because coming back together is what's necessary. That's where the core wound is in the exile and the isolation. And so I've been, my guidance has told me since I started this project, there will be courses, there will be classes and experiences. I'd love to have in-person events at some point, but it really has come to the fore that for the work that Amber and I are doing together, it's essential to bring the collective, to bring a more voice into it from a larger network of folks. And so how this is coming through is starting right after the solstice, which is a little more than a month from now. There's going to be a 6-month journey that will have, it will be 24 weeks, so it will go till early December. And every week, one of the vulva archetypes and the animals and the runes and such will be explored. There will be online calls, and then these, if you sign up at a certain level, these magical animistic amulet bundles that will be created, because part of this is inviting people into making these magical, deep, powerful, supportive, sustaining relationships with the place around you and rekindling that core knowing of magic and enchantment. And so this course that I'll be the one who will be running the course is we're going to do these deep dives into what this kit could be, how it can be embodied. I'm starting to learn how to sing the runes right now. Amber, we're going to talk about that later. That's why I call it. We're singing the runes. Amber really is feeling calling back the stories and the chanting that the vulvas would have when they would travel. So this is going to be something where whoever feels called to come to this and do this course with me, we will co-create. You will have a voice and be on this journey and have early access to the content while because our goal is to crowdfund it early 2025. So I really feel like having other folks who really are committed and dedicated to being part of place shopping and sacredly cauldroning this project, I'm really excited about. So that's, again, the plural witches feels really, really essential to all of this, that this is a collective, not just a solitary practitioner anymore, that we need each other.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I wanted to ask you though, not though, but also, I mean, do you, because, this is one of the questions that we discussed before, or that we were going to discuss, which I found very interesting is this, first of all, I have 2 questions. First, before I say this one that I'm going to say is, because obviously, historically, the vulvas have been like women, right? Like, that's kind of like the reference, right? Or mostly seen as, but you mentioned earlier that anybody can take part of this. Is there any, so I should say, because I'm gay, but I'm as a cis gay man, right? But as a cisgender man, that will come into a place where there's more, which there might be more women, or the majority of people participating might be women. How would the approach be for someone, obviously, respect, very, very big, being respectful and being, but how it's, my question is more broad, like, what is the right approach, which, let's say, for a cis man that wants to take part of women, of a group that's mostly composed of women, there might be cis, there might, trans, but what is that approach? What does that look like, and or should look like, right? And because my question always comes from like making, how is it comfortable for you, but how is it, like, what is the best way to navigate this and also take part of it and benefit from it as well?
Amber, you want to
Sure.
Was that question?
Yeah, no, I want to make sure I understand. So you're curious about how a cisgendered man can participate in this and have a place of comfort in this.
Yeah, and also while respecting
the history and the that's a great question. And this is something that I think we're going to explore more, and as it unfolds, I think we're going to learn, because I think right now in society, our relationship to gender has been changing fundamentally in a huge way. And never before have there been so many people who have identified as non-binary. Mm-hmm. And I think this is a natural part of evolutionary process. I actually do intuitively know that, because this is just where the planet is. And so my sense of it is we'll know at the right time. And my invitation is that regardless of your gender and identity, right? If you feel called to this, you're going to know. You're going to feel it inside of you, right? I do know that there is something fundamentally that anchors you when you journey. And my first serious partner was a shamanic practitioner, and he left his body at the age of 32 through vision work, and he had not learned how to anchor himself. Mm-hmm. So the important piece, and I think this is something that we find with feminine identifying individuals and feminine energy individuals, is they tend to have a stronger anchoring to the planet for some reason. And historically, women have embodied that anchoring. So I think that it's a little bit easier for women or gender identifying women, feminine beings, to anchor in the physical in some ways through being of the female embodiment of Gaia, which also Gaia has a male embodiment too. But what I've seen though, shifting over the last 50 years, has been male born people also embodying the female. And I see that in my own marriage with a cis straight man who actually embodies a lot of the female roles in our family, and I embody a lot of the male roles in the family. And so going back to what does it mean to be honoring of this traditional lineage of a woman's place in this, I think that we have come far enough, and my hope is we've come far enough for that not to be a hang-up. And that also in that, there is the knowledge that's important to know of how to energetically root. And some men are born with that knowledge, and some women inherently know that knowledge, and some are born without it. And so knowing how to root and knowing how to ground, historically, what that has been is through sisterhood, through songs. So the vulvas would never, ever journey alone. And so this goes back to this important message of the community. And so if you have the vulvas holding each other, they can retrieve their sister or their brother back. And so I'd like to see how we work in this new space, and knowing the painful lessons of somebody who didn't know how to do that, right? And the autopsy said he had passed away with no known cause. And he came and visited me and to tell me what had happened, that he went to the edges and beyond and didn't anchor himself. Mm. And for those of us who have gone to that place, we know what that looks like. I have luckily had some really strong anchors, and I've learned how to anchor.
Mm. Can I ask something? This is something that you both share, right? Like this a similar story that you both share. That's a very strong, not a great experience to share with someone, but I think it's a strong link between you two. I think now I'm thinking about it as you were talking. I'm like thinking about this. I'm like, wow, like this is a very. I do think there's something more that just the project, that definitely there is a connection that you both understand each other in a deeper level as well. Sorry, I mean, maybe it's not my place to say that, but that just came to me as you were talking. So, wow, I'm just like, I'm a little, I went into that place in my mind.
There's a lot of those connections that we have.
Yeah, and I think, because I know we spoke about this in our live, the first time I did a live with Mellissae. So thank you for explaining that, because there is a lot of, I do feel like, I wouldn't say that about myself, but I do feel like because of the advancements that we've had as a society, but then there's also a lot of shame, from men going into women's spaces, or or non-binary people trying to take place in somewhere that they're only the binary is explored, so I think that that's a great, like you said, that it's a great way of approaching it, in order to benefit from this practice as well, and to find kinship, no matter who you are, right?
Exactly. That's
Yeah,
what I'm thinking, is this kinship piece, is that, and kinship is about subtlety and listening and respect and presence. And having created the Oracle of Initiation deck, what I found is when you create a divination system that has a depth to it, there's a force field that you come into when you come into the room with that creation. When there's something that really has time and intent and energy, strong energy put into it. And so there is absolutely no doubt for me that this project, literally, when you come to it, whoever you are, there will both be these gateways, these levels of coming into it. But I feel like it will start teaching you when you come, no matter who you are, so that if you are, it will let you know that there are things that are required for you to have access. And so again, I feel like anyone who comes, they're going to, and a lot of it will be unconscious, it will be very energetic, but you will get a sense of, oh, I need to slow down here. I need to pay attention. I'm in a new territory. What are the threshold teachings? What's the entry etiquette here? These are things that we're gonna explore in the online course that I'm gonna do. But what are we? How do you 101? How do you start to even access these relationships? There are protocols to this, and so I have a lot of faith that anybody who shows up in this room with this project, they are absolutely meant to be there, 100%.
Yeah. And I think also, I mean, and this is, I'm not, I think from the standpoint of you're both facilitating, which is kind of like helping, kind of like a doula, right? Would help someone give birth, but like they're not the ones giving birth. They're the ones that are helping, right? But you have to give birth, right? Like you have to do the other, or you have to be born, right? So that process is it's personal, individual, and everybody will go through it at a different pace and a different form, and we'll get something different out of it as well. So I think I think also that's the magic and beauty of these processes as well. I want to ask something, because we're almost, we're at the top of the hour, but I want to ask two things. The one that I was going to ask earlier, which is this historical, historically accurate project, right? Which we said we were going to ask that question, which I think is a very good question to ask, because a lot of times people get confused, I would say, with unverified personal gnosis, which is a very valid still, because that's how we learn things, right? Like it's not, we learn things that we're told, but also sometimes we find out that what we're told is not really the truth, right? So we're always in that liminal space, right? Yeah. So would this be considered historically accurate? And if not, which I don't, again, I'm not sure, because I haven't asked the question yet, right? But if not, how, what's the approach to it? Is it like, again, that's part of the play, like, some of it is more embellished, some of it, so whatever, what's the answer to that?
Amber, do you want to jump on that?
Sure, I'll jump on that. And I do want to make sure I'm addressing the question I see just real quick. That she asked the question of how someone died from not being anchored. And so this was just to address that. That's not how everyone dies. That was one particular person who was doing deep shamanic astral travel work outside of his body for wisdom and not guidance. And so why the Völvas have had the group and the sisterhood was to provide a physical anchor to call their souls back to their bodies. and they use songs and particular songs and chants to do that. The person who was my partner many years ago, who left his body, did not have that that community anchoring him. He didn't have a tether to the planet that was strong enough for him to not exit permanently. And so he died in his sleep with no known cause. There's no heart attack. There was nothing that happened. That's what was stated. He did come to visit me and told me what had occurred. So that was just a side note. Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to say something that's a very common, some people call it belief or whatever, but it is prevalent in many cultures, and especially in religious and magical practices, where you have to, I think, like, because again, popular culture, people think, oh, this is just the safest thing you can do and whatever, and like, you know, magic, it is very real, and just as with the reality of magic comes the reality of things that can go wrong also, you know, and it doesn't mean that you should be fearful.
Yeah.
It means that you should be cautious, right? Just like if you're gonna cross the street, you look both ways, right? Because I think the carelessness of it is not the right approach. I love how you're coming up with all these.
I know, this is amazing.
Special effects.
When you do two thumbs up, it seems to be. I'm just letting you know. I didn't.
But I guess it's not but it's okay. It's fun because it's fun that it's happening to you. So I love it. But thank you for explaining that. I saw the question, but I didn't want to interrupt.
Yeah.
But
and then
it is. Yeah,
and I do want to get to your answering the question of the historical accuracy. So as I would describe it, is that there's a few different schools of thoughts on runes. So there's you call it the Futhark school, and that's the traditional, what you know typically as the Elder Futhark is what we often see within runic tradition. And then there's an anthropologist that started diving into understanding it more in a circular pattern rather than a linear process with these different groupings. And if you twist the wheel 1 degree, you actually get what you call the Uthark system, which starts with Urus, which is the animal representation is the aurochs, or the bull, right? The ancient primordial power and raw primal power. Yeah. Twist it to the right or left. Wait, there we go.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, but a little bit up. Yeah, a little bit up.
Yeah. So
there you go.
So that's the traditional way with the Futhark starts with Fau, which in this system is the reindeer. So we start with 0 and 24, or actually end with 24 or 0. We start with the initiator, which is Urus, which is raw primal power and strength. And strength unleashes power, and the lack of strength is weakness, which unleashes the overuse of strength is aggression, right? So when you think about weakness unleashes aggression, those are the manifestation. And so what the initiator does is it unleashes. Mm-hmm. And the animal is the aurochs and Urus. And it's amazing when you look at the rune, it actually looks like an aurochs. And so something that we discovered by finding that resonant animals was they actually look like the runes. The silhouettes of the animals fit perfectly. It's amazing.
I love that. So, sorry, but to be, because I think we deviated maybe a little bit. So you said this one would be based on the anthropologist work.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Uthark. So as we can say, there's debates on what's historically accurate. And there's
a lot
two different
stuff that we don't know of,
right. There's two different schools of thought. We're following this second school of thought that looks at the Uthark. Is it historically accurate to have animals involved in the runes? In some runes actually already have animals in them, like Algi's is the elk, etc. So we know that exists in some of the runes. So it is not historically accurate to have animals tied to every rune. And we have expanded upon that. And then we've also created a modern word that translates that archetype. And then we also are using the Uthark system for the numbers, if that makes sense, which actually fits really well. So it's well researched. It's not 100% historically accurate.
And I love that because I think one of the concerns when people say historically accurate, because I mean, especially runes, there's not, even now with all the studies, there's not really last word on it, because you know, a lot of people know runes because of Ralph Blum, you know, and that was one thing. That was one thing that then people find out, like where his, you know, where like how he came up with his information, etc. And then everything has kept evolving, and again, like different schools of thought. But I also find interesting that before, because of the lack of access to information, people would kind of like to give validity to something, would say, oh, this is ancient. And it doesn't have to be, it's based on something ancient, right? But technology, just as technology evolves, I feel like I always tell people, well, do you want to, you know, go back to the rock wheel, you know, or are we or are we using something different to get around now, right? So I think that's a great way to look at these different technologies that are evolving, even if they're spiritual technologies based on something that's older. I think the honesty about it, which is to be, you know, of the origins of it, it's great because then also it allows people to, I think it helps people also allow the information to come through. Like, again, as I said, personal gnosis is very important because our spirits are different. We're all in different journeys. We're going through different stages. And I think, in my belief, right? And I think that given the permission to
Totally
feel that, you know, let's see, if you feel different, let's explore why you feel different, versus like you shouldn't feel that way because that's not the truth and that's not the history of it, you know, like that type of mentality. So I love that so much. I want to ask this question before, because I mean I know we started a little later, but we're already in an hour. So when we're, as you said, Mellissae, you hope this to be crowdfunded, right? Is that what you said, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Next year.
So what is, we spoke about the classes, etc., but what is the kit contain, right? How is that going to look like for people that are interested, that are going to be following that after this live, or whenever they watch it, they're going to be following you guys and sign up for it? What is it that they're signing up for?
Well, at this point, again, part of this course that's going to start around the solstice is that the collective, such as crowdfunding is in some ways, will help to form and to evolve this dynamic project. At this point, what we understand is that there are cards, and there is a casting cloth that will will have the wheel on it, the wisdom wheel. And then it also, part of what the Völvas historically in the Eddas, there is the information, this very old information, again, similar to the Bible. Do you actually read it literally, or do you read it mythically? You know, it's a question, but part of what they would do with their staffs is that they would cover their heads with the singers and the directions to journey. So this cloth will double as that. And then something potentially with some casting pieces that we haven't quite figured that piece out yet. Very excited.
And here's some of the cards. Yep.
This is where we're at. You know, it's like I say, these are all prototypes. These are working titles right now because it's, you know, we're 6 months out, potentially 6-7 months from crowdfunding, but there's part of what I want to offer to people to bring into this project is also that you are making your own sacred amulet casting bundles, finding your own staff. Like, this is the invitation, like you said, the permission to come and have this dynamic, living, present relationship with the land and the Nordic energies. And the Nordic energies are simply one of the energies of this grid on the planet of the original people. This is the Nordic piece, is a piece with all of these other energies and systems and traditions that is going to come forth in this project, but it weaves together with all of the others.
Yeah, and I want to just add in that one of the things that we've been working on is the description of some of the tools, the sacred tools that work with this. And so that's what Lucia was talking about with these different tools that you go and collect to bring forward into work, into magic work with each of the archetypes.
Yeah.
I love that. So when they sign up, so it starts next month, right? By the you said by the solstice, right?
The course.
The course.
Yeah.
So they can sign up by going where?
Follow. I'm working on the sign up page, y'all. So that will.
It's okay because I'll post it as soon as you tell me you have it. I'll post it.
But go follow me, Mellissae Lucia, on Instagram here. My newsletter will talk about it too. But yeah, that course will have a couple of different levels, and it'll be delicious. But I was excited. You know, you are the first conversation, the first public conversation that we have had about this project. This is a big deal with us coming out of the broom closet with this. I'm very excited.
Thank you for the trust and opportunity. And I think also I want to say something because it just came to my mind, and I know, and we've been talking about spirituality and all the beauty of it, etc. There is a lot of negative association with with runes, etc., because of the whole horrible history of white supremacy appropriating these sacred symbols to exert abuse over to exert abuse over other people. So I just wanted to mention it so people know that we're aware that we're not ignoring the fact that exists, but that this course is still inviting everybody, everybody from every culture, every creed. They can come in and participate, and give their input and experience as well. Because I love every time I see something that has to do with runes, and I see something like that associated with it, it angers me so much, because it's like, these are symbols that I love, that I respect, that I work with in magic, that are very powerful. And it just bothers me. So I just wanted to mention that so people know, obviously, that that exists. This is not it. And so I always like making that disclaimer whenever I talk about anything that's Norse or Nordic in that sense.
Right. No. That.
If you wanted to add something to that, that's fine.
The total complete aberration, and the project is about kinship. So anyone can benefit from learning about how we have more of a connection with the seen and unseen and the land and each other. So this happens to be the Nordic channel of it, but it really is, as I said, the broader web of original peoples around the planet.
I love that. Well, I'm going to thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
And this has been delightful as usual. And I'm so happy I got to talk to you, Amber.
Yeah.
Also, thank you for joining.
Likewise, yeah.
And this is very exciting. So people, I'm going to tag, I don't know if you want me to tag you, Amber, if you want, because you don't have a lot posted on Instagram.
Yeah, I just started Instagram. It's not been something I've used much.
But,
so
but if you want,
you can tag me. Yeah, that's
so
fine.
Follow both of you,
and I have my artist Instagram page, which is Amber Dawn, and then I prefer tagging that one, please.
Oh yeah. So perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I'm gonna can you put?
I think I messaged you via, and I think I'm on via that Instagram account.
Okay, so I'm gonna tag both of you, and then so people can follow you. Check it out. As soon as Mellissae has a link for signing up, I will post it again. So thank you so much for being here and for this amazing project. So hope to talk to you both soon.
Bye.
Bye.